When Senator Chris Van Hollen confronted Commerce Secretary Lutnick, it wasn't just about paperwork, it was about whether the Trump administration believes it has to follow the law at all. Months after ordering massive federal job cuts without congressional approval, Lutnick arrived on Capitol Hill dodging questions, ignoring court rulings, and downplaying life-or-death risks at the National Weather Service right as hurricane season loomed. This wasn't oversight as usual. It was a showdown over executive overreach and public safety.
Thank you. So, Mr. Secretary, I mentioned in my opening comments the RIF plans. On February 11th, President Trump signed an executive order requiring agency heads to plan, quote, large-scale reductions in force, known as RIFs, and agency reorganization plans. On March 27th, Senator Moran and I sent you a letter requesting that you send us the plans the department submitted to the White House. It's now June 4th. We've not received a response. We're in the middle of a budget hearing. First of all, you would agree, would you not, that your reorganization plans are relevant to the committee's consideration of the budget?
I think our proposal for the budget is clear, so I think it takes those things into account.
Mr. Secretary, let me ask you this. Are you going to provide us with the reorganization plan, and when?
I will certainly get together with the department, and we will consider what information we can give you that makes sense. But I'm happy to work with you offline if you'd like.
Okay, Mr. Secretary, you're aware of the fact that a federal district court ruled that the RIF plans proposed by the Trump administration could not go forward because the judge stated that, quote, agencies may not conduct large-scale reorganizations and reductions in force in blatant disregard of Congress's mandates, and a president may not initiate large-scale executive branch reorganization without partnering with Congress. That decision was upheld by an appellate court just a few days ago. I'm not asking you to opine on that legal decision. I'm simply asking you to provide the committee with the reorganization plan, and your response is maybe yes, maybe no. Am I getting that right? I mean, are you going to provide the plan to this committee as we review the budget for the upcoming year?
Well, we at the department are going to follow the law. That, of course, is what we're going to do.
Okay. Well, the law actually does require that you submit these major changes to the Senate. Let me ask you this. I mentioned in my opening statement the fact that I'd sent a number of letters to you. Our staff has actually sent inquiries to your team. I have a lot of questions today, but they'll be a lot longer unless I can get a commitment that you and your team will respond to the inquiries we've made. These are simple questions. They don't, and I'll set aside for now the RIF plan. And Mr. Chairman, I would ask unanimous consent to submit to the record the letters that I've sent to the Secretary and the staff inquiries that my team has made.
Without objection.
Okay. Mr. Secretary, will you agree, say, within a week to get responses to these inquiries?
I can easily agree that I will go through your letters, and to the extent I can answer them, I will happily answer you within a week.
Well, when you say?
I don't know what the letters
say. This is
say
an oversight
as I sit here right now. So.
Well, okay, Mr. Secretary, their question. I can. Well, I'll read through some of them later in the hearing. We can go through them one by one. They're pretty straightforward, simple questions about the implications of the department's actions on certain programs. Let me turn to the National Weather Service for a moment because, as you know, originally 600 staff were eliminated from the National Weather Service. Then all of a sudden, it seems the department realized that this was not really a good idea, as many weather stations around the country, and the chairman referenced some of them, said they couldn't be staffed full-time. We have a headline from just May 15th, Washington Post: NOAA scrambles to fill forecasting jobs as hurricane season looms. I know that we're scrambling to try and rehire about 100 or hire 126 people, but Mr. Secretary, it's my understanding that as of today, offices in Kansas, Alaska, and Oregon are no longer operating 24 hours a day. Is that accurate?
The department employs 2,100 meteorologists and hundreds of other forecasters, okay? This is less than 5%. We are fully staffed. There are no openings on the National Hurricane Center, zero. It is fully staffed. We are fully ready for hurricane season, and our meteorologists
Mr. Secretary,
are fully staffed.
you did not answer
Fully staffed.
you did not answer the direct question about whether those weather offices are open full time, and it's obvious that you all made a huge mistake. I mean, you've acknowledged it by having to rehire 126 people. But can you just comment on whether or not those offices I mentioned are operating 24
We have
hours a
not
day?
made a huge mistake. I did not say such a thing.
I didn't say you did. It's pretty obvious from the actions. I will. As I said, you fired
News
600.
report
You're
was
rehired.
inaccurate, obviously.
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 We're happy to follow up, and you can provide the facts.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Secretary, in Kansas, we have lots of
The Senate Appropriations Committee convened a hearing to scrutinize the Trump administration's failure to provide legally required agency reorganization and reduction in force RIF plans to Congress. These plans, ordered by a 2018 executive directive, aim to authorize large-scale federal job cuts, including positions critical to public safety like National Weather Service forecasters. Senator Chris Van Hollen pressed Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick on the administration's refusal to submit these plans, despite federal court rulings declaring unilateral reorganizations illegal without congressional approval. The hearing highlighted both constitutional concerns over executive overreach and immediate public safety risks, as prior layoffs left some weather offices understaffed during hurricane season. Senators sought transparency, accountability, and assurance that vital federal services would not be dismantled in secret. The core legal issue centers on whether the executive branch can implement large-scale federal job cuts and agency reorganizations without congressional approval. Under existing federal law, any major reduction in force RIF or structural reorganization must be submitted to Congress for review. This requirement ensures checks and balances, preventing the president from unilaterally dismantling essential government services. A federal district court, and later an appellate court, ruled that the Trump administration's secret RIF plans violated this principle, declaring that agencies may not conduct large-scale reorganizations in blatant disregard of Congress's mandates. By refusing to provide these plans to lawmakers, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick raised constitutional concerns, effectively challenging Congress's oversight authority and the fundamental requirement that the executive branch follow the law. Senator Chris Van Hollen's concerns centered on transparency, legality, and public safety. He repeatedly pressed Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick to provide the department's reorganization and reduction in force RIF plans, which are legally required for congressional oversight. Van Hollen highlighted that despite months of letters and staff inquiries, the department failed to respond. He warned that withholding these plans not only violates the law, but endangers communities, especially as hurricane season approached. He cited staffing shortages in the National Weather Service, where layoffs left offices in Kansas, Alaska, and Oregon without 24-hour coverage. For Van Hollen, this was not a mere bureaucratic dispute. It was a question of executive accountability, legal compliance, and protecting Americans from the real-life consequences of reckless cuts. The operational impact of the Trump administration's proposed RIF plans and early staffing cuts was immediate and alarming. The National Weather Service (NWS), a critical agency for public safety, saw over 600 positions eliminated, leaving multiple forecast offices understaffed. Reports indicated that offices in Kansas, Alaska, and Oregon were no longer staffed 24 hours a day, raising concerns about delayed warnings during severe storms or hurricanes. The Commerce Department scrambled to rehire at least 126 meteorologists and forecasters to address the gaps, but the disruption highlighted how sudden, poorly planned cuts could compromise disaster readiness. Limited staffing during peak hurricane season risked slower storm tracking and delayed emergency alerts, demonstrating that bureaucratic decisions at the top can have life or death consequences for communities nationwide. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick's response during the hearing was evasive and non-committal. When pressed by Senator Chris Van Hollen to provide the legally required RIF and reorganization plans, Lutnick repeatedly deflected. He offered vague promises to consider what information we can give, and suggested working offline, rather than committing to transparency. Even after being reminded that federal courts had ruled the administration's secret plans unlawful, he would not confirm whether the documents would be submitted to Congress. On operational issues, Lutnick insisted that the National Weather Service was fully staffed and hurricane-ready, yet he avoided directly answering whether offices in Kansas, Alaska, and Oregon were open 24/7. His testimony reflected delay, deflection, and a refusal to provide clear accountability. The broader implication of this hearing reaches far beyond one agency or one administration. At its core, the confrontation highlights a fundamental question: must the executive branch follow the law and respect Congress's constitutional oversight? If presidents can initiate large-scale reorganizations and layoffs without congressional approval, it undermines the system of checks and balances that prevents unilateral power. Secret RIF plans and delayed disclosures erode public trust and put essential public services, like weather forecasting, disaster response, and civil protections, at risk. This clash is a warning that bypassing legal processes in the name of efficiency or politics can create operational chaos and endanger lives. Transparency, accountability, and adherence to the law are critical to maintaining a functioning democracy. The hearing between Senator Chris Van Hollen and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick underscores the stakes when executive overreach collides with constitutional duty. Refusing to submit legally required RIF and reorganization plans is not just a bureaucratic delay, it's a challenge to the rule of law. The administration's actions, from secret layoffs to scrambling to rehire critical weather personnel, reveal the human cost of bypassing oversight. Lives, livelihoods, and public trust are on the line when government functions in the shadows. Van Hollen's insistence on transparency sends a clear message: no president or cabinet secretary is above the law. For democracy to work, Congress must enforce its oversight role, and the public must demand accountability before vital services are dismantled.